Hey guys, it's Pastor Jason again. Thank you so much for letting me into your group. As you know by now, we're going through this series called You've Got What It Takes. And if you were with us on Sunday, we were talking about relationships. I hope that it was a blessing to you. Relationships, they're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be life-giving. And as we talked about on Sunday, they're supposed to be something that are healthy. Often our relationships with God and our relationships with others are anything other than healthy. And so as we kind of open up the group today, we're going to do a little icebreaker that hopefully will be fun for your group. We've all had an awkward date. We've all had an awkward relationship. All of us have had someone in our life where it's kind of like no matter how much we wanted to like this person and get along with this person, man, we just don't mix with them. So as we go into our icebreaker question, talk a little bit about what makes an awkward relationship so weird and awkward. So if we know it's bad, hopefully we can learn what is healthy and good. Take a second and do it, and then I'll see you in a moment. Hey everybody, again, I wish that I could be in your group. I know that that icebreaker question, that's one of those ones that I'm sure there were some interesting stories. I will tell you a little bit about my story. Probably the most awkward date that I've ever been on this is real, for real, y'all. I actually was kind of on a date with a guy and didn't know it. You talk about awkward. That was very, very tense and very, very awkward. You're going to have to ask me about it on Sunday if you want any more details than that. As we kind of go into a place that is a little more serious place, though, we really did this video especially for people that are in a marriage relationship. We know that many of you that are watching this video, you're a couple. You're walking in that most intimate relationship with someone else, the closest representation of us and Jesus in the church. You're in that relationship right now. You're in a marriage relationship. And man, that's hard. Let me just go ahead and say, I love my wife. Jessica's amazing, but it's hard to really walk with someone and to be one with them. You know, in Genesis chapter 2, that chapter's finished out with this kind of beautiful passage where God says, you know, for this reason, a man leaves his father and his mother, and he's united to his wife, and the two become one. We have this beautiful picture of what's supposed to happen when we enter into marriage, where this man, this woman that are separate entities, they're supposed to somehow combine their life, combine their loves, their hopes, their joys, their fears, their expectations, all they are, and become one. In order for oneness to happen, authenticity has to happen. We cannot wear masks in front of our spouse and claim to be one with them. We cannot be hiding things. We cannot be, putting things in the dark and still say, oh yes, I'm one with this person's heart. I'm one with this person's soul. I'm one with this person's life. And so on Sunday, we talked a lot about what does it mean to have authenticity. As you spend time with your group, I really want you to examine, how can we be authentic in marriage? What are some of the barriers that come up that prevent us from being authentic with one another? What does authenticity mean in a marriage relationship? What does it really mean for people to share souls and to share hearts? And how can we have that in marriage? How is it possible to really walk with someone every single day and still discover new parts of their life and new parts of their heart, new parts of who they are? And so the next couple of questions you're going to be looking at really dive into what does it mean to be authentic? And as we look at marriage relationships, just to call it out, Satan hates marriage, and he is doing everything possible to keep you and your spouse from sharing authenticity, because he knows that the moment that couples really experience oneness, once the masks come down and the walls come down and people are real with one another and they can see into one another's life and soul, the moment that happens, his power over your marriage almost completely is negated and destroyed. So he's doing everything possible to help you put on mask and to help you be anything other than transparent with each other. So take just a second and let's talk about how can we be authentic with each other, and I'll see you in just a moment. Hey guys, welcome back. Now, as we've already discussed, Satan wants to attack your authenticity. One of the other targets, one of his major targets in your life that he wants to destroy and completely eradicate is he wants to eradicate purity in marriage relationships. And again, being very real with you, there are more opportunities for impurity in marriage than maybe ever in history. Impurity and the temptations to be unfaithful, they've always existed. We look back at the scriptures and we can tell that from the very beginning, it was very, very hard for couples to be faithful to each other. But man, the opportunity and mediums by which our purity is tested and challenged just grow and grow and grow. I remember when I was a kid, no one could imagine the power the internet would have in tempting people to be tempted to be impure, whether that be through pornography, whether that be through people being able to connect on Facebook and other social social media platforms and stretch relationships to places they shouldn't go, it is really, really hard for the marriage bed to stay pure. And yet I want you to know that, man, God takes it so seriously that we keep the marriage bed pure, and that for those of us that are married, that we understand that our spouse is not a roommate. We are supposed to be in this life-giving, intimate, passionate, beautiful relationship with them. And we're supposed to do everything we can to make sure that that relationship is special and is pure. And Hebrews 13:4 really talks about this. It's just such a clear verse where the writer of this book, I believe it to be Paul, is saying, hey, listen, keep the marriage bed pure. Make sure that you honor marriage and that you keep that marriage bed pure, because God's going to judge people that are unfaithful in marriage. And he goes, that's both fornicators and adulterers. So he's saying, look, for any of you that are not in a marriage relationship and you are a part of tempting and testing a marriage, man, God's going to judge you for that. And for those of you that are married, and you're thinking about being unfaithful and moving into that category of adultery, whether it be digitally or whether it be physically or whether it be emotionally, like God, there's a judgment, a real judgment that happens for that. I do a lot of marriage counseling, and one of the things that I've found so frequently is that when the marriage bed is tested, it's because on some level, that couple is not taking care of one another the way they should. We're doing a whole nother video where we're speaking to singles. And purity for singles is different because there's not an acceptable way for them to express some of the physical and emotional and spiritual desires of their heart. They haven't gone into that relationship. Well, you guys, you're married. You have every opportunity to explore sexuality, to explore intimacy, to explore dating, to explore love and all these wonderful things. And yet Satan is doing all that he can to make it like the lowest priority to take care of your spouse. And so what we want you to do is really talk about what are some of the barriers that come up that make it hard to have intimacy as a priority, to have connection as a priority, and to fight this battle within your marriage for purity. Because if you fight the battle for intimacy in your marriage, then when your spouse is outside of the home, when they're outside of your sphere of influence, they're going to find it a lot easier to win victories over purity. And so take a little bit and talk about what are some of the enemies we face in prioritizing intimacy and connection. And then you can even, if you want to, talk a little bit about what are some of the temptations that married couples face, because they're very real. And if you can speak them forward, you can battle them and you can have victory. So take a second to do that, and I'll see you in a moment. Hey guys, I know that the conversations that you've had in your group tonight, they've had to just be real conversations. You can't talk about authenticity and purity without revealing a little bit of who you are. And so thanks for kind of walking through this with us. You have what it takes to have a healthy relationship. And we want to talk about these things that, you got to be real and you got to be a little bit willing to be vulnerable. As we finish up our time together, I kind of have an answer for you. If someone were to ask me, how can I have authenticity and how can I fight the battle for purity and for priority, I really think that one of the most important things a couple can do together is to pray. Couples that pray together, they experience such a unique form of authenticity and spiritual intimacy. I think that, man, if you were going to do one thing to try to fix the purity problem and the authenticity problem, it would be prayer. And so as we go into our closing question, I want you guys to be talking a little bit about, what is your prayer like as a couple? Those of you that do regularly pray as a couple, what are the benefits that you're experiencing? I know that for me and my wife, we have a long way to grow in this, but we've had that as a very regular part of our married life, where we openly pray to and for one another. And I'll being honest with you guys, I've said this from the stage before, our intimacy in prayer really reaches that place where it almost is the same as our sexual intimacy. I get to see parts of her soul, I get to see her heart, I get to see parts of her that nobody else gets to see when we pray together. And it so strengthens us, because I know she's being transparent and I know that she's showing me parts of herself that she would show nobody else. It's a beautiful thing. For those of you that pray, talk about your experiences. What is it like to pray together as a couple? For those of you who are couples and you don't pray, that's okay. But what's keeping you from praying? What fears are hindering you? What other things in your life are prohibiting you from doing this? Because I'm telling you, couples that do this, they experience a power that is unlike anything else in their marriage. So take some time to talk about it. And then after you finish talking about prayer and encourage one another to make that a part of your group, I know that many of you, as we've gone through this study, and many of you on Sunday Sunday, you knew there was something that God wanted you to do so that you could have the healthiest and strongest relationship possible. I'd like for you to take just a moment in your group and just kind of speak those things forward. What is something that you know you need to do so that your relationship with your spouse can go to the next level? It could be dating again. It could be getting something straight with sexual intimacy. It could be there's a sin that needs to be revealed. It could be there's a secret that needs to be brought forward. There are a million different things it could be. But I know that many of you know, man, there's this thing I need to do. And I want to challenge you. It's time for you to do it. We're with you 100% all the way. You do have what it takes to have healthy relationships. I'll see you next week, guys, and I can't wait to see what happens as you converse with one another.